Top of the morning, security gang. Happy Monday and welcome back to the CyberHub Podcast. My name is James Azar. I'm the host and Chief Information Security Officer. Great to be back in the studio this Monday morning, September 22nd, 2025. We have a packed show for all of y'all. To our friends in Europe that were stuck at the airport, we're going to get right into what made that outage go and then why it's partially the responsibility of the airlines and the airports as well. We'll get into all of that on today's show, including Entra ID, Fortra, MI6, and Scattered Spider. A few of those guys getting captured. We'll get into all of that on today's show, so go nowhere. Stay right here. Let's get the ball rolling. I've got my double espresso this morning. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. Perfect. All right. We'll start with the chaos that's taking place in Europe, specifically Brussels, London, Heathrow, I believe, and Berlin were all disrupted when a cyber attack on a US-based software system provider was occurred on Friday, essentially leading to the cancellation of flights, delays of flights, all through Saturday, Sunday, and even into today as of this morning. So I was watching the news this weekend. Okay. I'll say this. I was watching the news and I don't know where these like big media people bring these cyber experts with these weird theories about what's happening, but this is a business impact scenario. And the fact is that Collins Aerospace, the company that makes these systems, was only impacted in 3 airports: Berlin, London Heathrow, and Brussels. Didn't impact anywhere else. Now they're all over the place. They're all over the US, they're all over Latin America, they're all over Asia. So this wasn't an attack on the whole organization. This was an attack on those 3 airports. And we'll get into what exactly the attackers did in this attack. That'll make a lot of sense for folks watching this, because realistically, there's an aspect to this that's really got to be taken into consideration here. Knowing everything we know today, it's unknown who's behind the attack, although I'm sure at some point this will become evident. Departure boards for Heathrow, Berlin's Brandenburg's airports are showing sign of smoother arrivals and departures on Sunday, because guess what they had to do? So the only thing that didn't work were the actual workstations, but the self-check-in stations and everything else did work, meaning this specific attack only impacted those 3 airports and only impacted the agent counters. It didn't impact the self-check-in systems. Those could still work. Collins Aerospace is owned by RTX, and they have not really been complying with or answering comment requests. On Saturday, the aviation and defense company saying in a statement that the impact is limited to electronic customer check-in and baggage drop and can be mitigated with manual check-in operations. Russell was able to maintain 85% of scheduled departures over the weekend thanks to the deployment of extra staff by airport partners, and the fact that the self-bag drop and online check-in were still operational. Again, goes a long way in your resiliency plan, right? I often talk about the show. Resiliency. What's that day look like when an event happens? How resilient are you to those threats? Hello, and Monday Fun Day. Good morning, Jay. Thanks for tuning in. So the cyber attack affected only those computer systems at the check-in desks, not the self-service kiosks. I feel like this is like some weird thing of more self-service kiosks. Like, look, I never scan a QR code at the airport. Like my mobile boarding pass, it never makes it. No one ever sees it. I print a boarding pass every time. I refuse to not print a boarding pass. Like I refuse to. Just rule of thumb. Something to do with my sense of security based on something I know. And I'll urge everyone, print a paper boarding pass. Everyone who allows their phone to get scanned drives me absolutely insane. And so many people do it. Just like, oh, what's the worst that could happen? You don't want to know. The Collins Aerospace continues to work on restoring these systems As of this morning, we know that most systems are still getting restored. However, they've now got some sort of like, they've got a rhythm in play of how to check people in. Again, flights are getting canceled, and some flights are still getting canceled in all three major airports. However, arrivals have not. So there's that aspect. A critical combination of legacy components could have allowed a complete access to Microsoft Entra ID's tenant of every company in the world. For those who don't know what Entra ID is, because Microsoft changes names of products as often as we change socks in this world, Entra ID is what we all used to know as Active Directory. The fatal mix included an undocumented token called actor tokens and a vulnerability in the Azure Active Directory Graph API, that's CVE 2025-55241, that would allow the tokens to work with any organization's Entra ID environment. A threat actor exploiting the issue would have had access to a slew of highly sensitive data without leaving any trace in the logs on the targeted environment except for their own action. Entra ID is Microsoft's cloud-based identity access and management service, formerly known as Azure Active Directory, which provides organizations with single sign-on, MFA, and security controls across apps and resources. This can include Microsoft 365 services, custom and third-party SaaS products like Salesforce, Dropbox, even AWS, SAP, and Google. The level security researcher Dirk John Mulama, founder of Offensive Security, Outsider Security, discovered a token validation flaw that gave him global admin privileges to every Entra ID tenant. So that would have allowed that to happen. Now, there's nothing here that says this happened. It's a flaw that was discovered. So the company had warned that apps configured for this. Microsoft did patch this on September 4th. So that was something to keep in mind and take care of there. Threat actors are impersonating known brands in an ongoing widespread campaign aimed at infecting Mac OS users with information stealer malware, according to LastPass. As part of the infection chain, the attackers are relying on fraudulent GitHub repositories, claiming to provide Mac OS software from various companies and use search engine optimization so that links to those repositories appear at the top of the search pages. In the case of LastPass, the fraudulent repositories redirected potential victims to a repository that downloads the Atomic Info Stealer malware. They've identified 2 GitHub subs impersonating its brand, which were posted on the Microsoft-owned code-sharing platform on the 16th of September and have been taken down ever since. A page claiming to offer LastPass Premium on MacBook was redirecting to a macprograms-pro.com, where users were instructed to copy and paste the command into the terminal window. Again, every time this happens, it's always user driven at the end of the day. It's always someone on the user side doing something to give them this access. So that's something to keep in mind, folks. And just don't run it. Just don't run it. There's no reason whatsoever to have to run that. We'll continue with Russian spy groups Turla and Gamaredon joining forces to hack Ukraine. Ukraine and Russia have been in this war now for about 3.5 years. The war started on the 22nd of February of 2022. We're now the 22nd of September. So 3 years, 7 months to the day. In the early parts of this war, Russia really had the upper hand. We've now entered the stalemate part of the war, where they're trading miles, right? There's no big land grab from one way or the other. You grab a mile, I come back, I attack you, I regain the mile, you attack a mile. And meanwhile, people are dying, which is sad. But in the cyber front, something changed this year on the Ukraine side. Ukraine's been actively targeting Russian infrastructure. I mean, significantly. They targeted Russian elections. They've targeted financial firms. They've targeted cloud providers. They've targeted their security companies, their government offices. They've been going at it. That wasn't the case from the time the war broke out until about late last year, even early this year, around probably like February, March. Around February, March, it seemed like gloves were taken off Ukraine, or more people were added into the fact of using cyber warfare against the Russians. So the Russians are now taking the 2 most prolific threat groups that are linked to the Russian Federal Security Service and they're combining them to manufacture attacks against the Ukraine. Over the past year and a half, ESET said it detected Turla on 7 Ukrainian machines, compared with hundreds of thousands of compromised by Gamaredon. This is suggesting that Turla is only interested in specific machines, probably one containing highly sensitive intelligence. It's not the first time Gamaredon has collaborated with Russian-aligned actors. In 2020, they were observed its infrastructure being used by the Invisible group. Turla, for its part, has a history of hijacking other groups' infrastructure to infiltrate targets. That's why sometimes getting attribution is extremely, extremely difficult. So you're seeing Russia really pull up the pressure there. They're obviously also teasing Estonia and Poland with their jets encroaching their airspace. Russia needs to be checked quickly before this escalates into a wider regional conflict. Threat actors with the DPRK, that's the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. There's nothing in the people in North Korea. This is North Korea, folks. So the fact that somehow these dictatorships all have democratic peoples, just fascinating. Has been observed leveraging ClickFix style lures to deliver a known malware called Beaver Trail or Invisible Ferret. Now, we've talked about these malwares previously on the show about 2 months ago. These ClickFix attacks, again, we saw Russia use them. We've seen China use them. We're now seeing the North Korean use them because they're extremely, extremely effective. So Beaver Trail, Invisible Ferret, we've been talking about them since 2023 when Palo Alto first exposed the attacks. Over the years, Beaver Trail has been propagated via bogus NPM packages and fraudulent Windows video conferencing application like FCC Call, Free Conference, all written in JavaScript. The malware acts as an information stealer and a downloader for a Python-based backdoor known as Invisible Ferret, which creates persistence. The latest wave observed in May of this year is worth highlighting for 2 reasons. It's deploying ClickFix to deliver Beaver Trail and delivering the stealer in the form of a compiled binary produced using tools like PKG and PyInstaller for Windows, Mac OS, and Linux systems. A fake hiring platform web application created using Versal serves as a distribution vector for the malware, with the threat actors advertising cryptocurrency traders, sales, and marketing roles at various Web3 organizations, as well as urging targets to invest in Web3 companies. Again, they're targeting crypto users. Why? Because they need the money. That's the North Korean modus operandi. That's what they're always going to go after. CISA continues to expose more and more information now over Ivanti's EPMM API component vulnerability that's being exploited as a zero-day by threat actors. The flaws are a authentication bypass in EPMM's API component CVE 2025-4427 and a code injection vulnerability that's CVE 2025-4428 that allows execution of arbitrary code. The vulnerabilities affected the following Ivanti EPMM development branches and their earlier releases: 11.12.0.4, 12.3.0.1, 12.4.0.1, and 12.5.0.0. Ivanti addressed the issues on May 13th, but the threat actors were already exploiting them as 0 days. A week later, Eclectic IQ reported with high confidence that China's Nexus espionage group was leveraging the 2 vulnerabilities since May 15th. Find you someone that loves you the way China loves Ivanti. I mean, if you want happiness in this life, you find that same amount of love, that same amount of cuddleness, of attention, of awareness, of exploitation. I mean, they sure love them. This is a split malware delivery, according to CISA, analyzing 2 sets of malware consisting of 5 files that the attackers used to gain initial access to the on-prem Ivanti EPMM systems. The cyber threat actors targeted the MIFS /rs/API/v2 endpoint with the HTTP GET request and used the question format parameter to send malicious remote commands. The commands let the threat actors run reconnaissance activity by collecting system information, listing the root directory, mapping the network, fetching malicious files, and extracting lightweight directory access protocol credentials. So you can see those right here on the screen. We'll have them all available on our website at cyberhubpodcast.com, where you can catch everything there. Fortress patched a critical severity vulnerability in their Go Anywhere secure managed file transfer software that could be exploited for command injection. CVE 2025-10035 has a score of a perfect 10. The bug is described as a deserialization of untrusted data issue affecting the application's licensed servlet. According to the advisory by Fortra, the bug could be exploited by an actor with a validly forged license response signature to deserialize an arbitrary actor-controlled object, possibly leading to command injection. Exploitation of the flaw, according to Rapid7, could allow unauthenticated attackers to achieve remote code execution on these vulnerable systems. Fortra patched it in version 7.8.4 and 7.6.3, so you want to make sure you get those updated. The FBI, sorry, some of this is off alignment today. The FBI is warning that criminals are impersonating its IC3 website, and what they're saying is a possible malicious activity. So IC3.gov is where you go and report cybercrime to the FBI. They're impersonating that website. Why? Potentially to identify victims in order to say, all right, you reached out to the FBI. Let us get all this information from you, and then hit them again. So that could potentially be the case there. So just be very, very mindful of that. MI6 is launching a dark web portal to recruit foreign spies. The UK's Foreign Intelligence Agency launched a new James Bond dark web portal on Friday, recruiting spies anywhere in the world with access to sensitive information relating to terrorism or hostile intelligence activity. It was unveiled by Sir Richard Moore, the outgoing head of MI6, formerly known as the SIS, in Istanbul, a city he knew from a previous stint as ambassador to Turkey. Blaise Metrawali, the agency's first ever female chief, will replace him at the end of this month. During a speech, Moore said, today, we're asking those with sensitive information on global instability, international terrorism, or hostile state intelligence activity to contact MI6 securely online. Our virtual door is open to you. It's hosted on an Onion site. So there's that. Access instructions were uploaded to a verified YouTube account in all kinds of languages, alongside a video portraying fictional brave individuals from around the world who have taken the courageous decision to make contact with MI6 using Silent Courier. You have it there. And finally, authorities in the UK have now arrested and charged 2 individuals for their alleged roles in the hacking group Scattered Spider. One of them is also charged in the US. The suspects, Talaha Jubir, 19, from East London, and Owen Flowers, 18, from Walsall, West Midlands, were charged for a cyber attack on Transport for London that disrupted certain services with no actual impact on transportation. Flowers was initially arrested in September of 2024 in connection with the attack, but investigators have uncovered evidence linking him to the intrusion at U.S. healthcare organizations, and now more charges have been brought about against him. He'll likely be extradited to face justice in the U.S. According to the complaint, Jabir was in control of wallets and servers in which approximately $36 million in crypto was stored. In July, when authorities were seizing the servers, Jabir transferred $8.4 million to another wallet. He faces 95 years in prison. So both of those guys are facing the long hand of justice. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern, right here with all the latest. To all of our Jewish friends that are watching the show, Shana Tova. Shana Tova umetuka. May this be a very, very sweet year. The Jewish New Year commences this evening, going into tomorrow in Israel, in the U.S., and everywhere outside of Israel. It extends an additional day into Wednesday as we mark the beginning of the Jewish New Year. So Shana Tova to everyone tuning in. Again, we'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern with all the latest. Until then, have a great rest of your day, and most importantly, y'all, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.